Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen Podcast. I have two of my friends, one of my favorite podcasts, actually my favorite podcast couple, one of my favorite podcasts, the Homewrecker Podcast. They're paranormal. They do a great podcast. They dig into subjects. I'm so glad. I've been going back and forth trying to get you guys on, and we just never had it work out. Say hello, everyone, to Alex and Monique. How are you guys?
Hello.
Hello, we're wonderful. How are you?
I'm very good. I have constantly said how much I love your title. How did you come up with your title, The Homewrecker Podcast?
Well, so we've been talking about doing a podcast for a long time, and I was kicking around different ideas, just trying to think of something unique to do. And I was saying we should do a podcast where we just have on couples and we ask them questions that typically couples are uncomfortable answering. Stuff like, how many sexual partners have you had? You know, just stuff like that that are like kind of taboo subjects. And we'll call it the Homewrecker Podcast. We're just going to wreck homes and relationships. Just kidding around. And when we were trying to figure out what are we going to call the podcast, when we finally decided, we're just going to talk about stuff that interests us, like paranormal stuff, conspiracy theories, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I said, why don't we'll just use the Homewrecker name? Why not?
And also it works because we don't always see eye to eye, and sometimes we may get slightly upset with each other.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And so did you both, because Monique, you read tarot, I know that.
Yes.
And people, if you want a reading, her website is Tarot by Monique. All right, we're going to plug that right up front. Tell me individually, how did you each get involved in the paranormal, or was it a childhood thing, or what happened there?
Well, for me, it's always been something that's interested me ever since I was a kid. I remember going to the library when I was in like third grade and discovering a book about the Loch Ness Monster. And from there, it was looking into Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, poltergeists, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's been a lifelong, I guess, interest, passion, whatever you want to call it. What about you?
I think that's most, it's very interesting. Every once in a while, you run into someone in the paranormal who had one experience. I wasn't a believer, had one experience, and then they're all in. But I almost feel like this, starting it as a kid, it's almost like you were born instinctively knowing that you weren't told everything.
Yeah, I'd say that makes sense, because that's how I've kind of always been like that with everything anyway. I never accept things at face value. I'm always questioning things that are told to me.
Right.
So, I think that probably definitely plays a big part in it, for sure.
And how about you, Monique?
Well, I guess when I was a kid, I got into paranormal. When I was little, I used to see things and things that nobody else could see. And my friends were trees and rocks. I never really fit in, but I started using the Ouija board when I was a kid, and I started witchcraft when I was 12 for a few years. Yeah, didn't tell anybody because that was so taboo back then. Couldn't let my parents know what I was doing. But yeah, I would see things, I would feel things, I would hear things. I think by using the Ouija board, I let an entity into my home. Yeah, but it was funny because it didn't really scare me. It more annoyed me at times, and I'd be like, "Oh, shut up, leave me alone." And it was kind of a fun little relationship. But yeah, I've always just felt things and felt there was more out there than what everyone sees.
That's such a great analogy, especially of a kid that's not afraid of what they see, because I feel like there's so many beings out there that are neutral.
Yeah.
Like they said, people can have a neutral attachment, which is still taking their energy, but it's not malicious or it's not a helper. It's just neutral.
It's just
Yes. When you saw things as a kid, were they dead people? Were you seeing elementals? What were you seeing?
I don't know. It was like lights, and I still get it. But my mom and I were having a conversation about how I'd see like floating things of light, and I always see like through my peripheral vision, I'll see like balls of light or like glowing light, things of that nature. So it's little things like that. And I just remember as a kid, it was like really sparkly. It was like white sparkles, and, you know, I'd see stuff like that. So looking back, I think those were energies that I was seeing. I'm not quite sure what it was, but nothing ever really scared me. It was always, I was very interested in it. I wanted to like follow it around. I wanted to kind of check it out. And I think that's what maybe was going on with that energy as well, kind of checking out, oh, what's going on with her?
You know, I think I see that now, and I'm always trying to differentiate. I called my friend Tommy and I asked him because I don't have great eyes, and you know, because sometimes when you're laying in a dark room and you see it, you know, that was not, you know what I mean? Like if you're laying in bed at night and you see it, I know what that is. But do you ever see them where they're blue? Sometimes they seem blue to me.
Yeah, I've gotten blue. I've seen some different colors before, but for me, the one thing I think about is how did I feel? Because sometimes with light I think, oh, it's probably just my eyes playing tricks, or it's, you know, something else reflecting light that's somehow catching off of something. But if I feel like something's there, that's what I try to go by is how am I feeling? Do I feel alone right now? And if I don't feel alone, then I know, okay, I'm not just seeing things.
What a great tip. What a great tip to see how you feel. Very interesting. And it's 11:11 on my clock, just as you said that. Woo! And Alex, you're in the field. So when someone's in, I always feel like they're intuitive anyway. Any other things? Do you see stuff or you just rely on Monique?
I rely completely on her. I don't see anything. I very rarely feel anything. I try my best to be open, I guess, as much as I can. I've tried meditating and stuff like that, but I don't see things. And like I said, it's very rare that I feel anything either.
But he does have intuitiveness because they're just day to day certain things. It's like, it's hard to give examples, but it's just like, no, because your gut is telling you this, your body is telling you this, and you go with it and you're right.
You know, you're right.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, males underestimate their intuition so much. So much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you got that right there. I know my dad was one of the most intuitive people. And I always think psychic stuff and intuitive stuff, sometimes it's finding a parking spot. Sometimes it shows no value at all except finding a parking spot. But that's true. And have either of you had scary experiences?
I've had some freaky experiences, but I just want to point out something you mentioned about males and intuitiveness. My dad is a police officer, and for like, I mean, he even said, I've gone into houses, I've been in situations where it's just, I knew, or I could feel like, no, something's wrong. Don't go in, don't step there, don't do this. So that's why he's always listened to his gut. And he's like, I think that's why, you know, I was able to make it through the job and not get hurt. And I think there are a lot of men who just, they never talk about it. They just they either listen or they don't. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So but they usually don't talk about it.
And probably your dad has this ability. Have you ever known it's like you can be a room full of people and cops and criminals can spot each other in a second?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And they're both on, and this is weird because someone would say they're both the same person, which isn't exactly it, but they both have to think about crime.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, for some people, they can just feel the energy, like you're holding one kind of energy, whether you feel something that's like opposite of that or similar, depending on like the vibration, you can pick up on that as well.
Wow. And before we get to Alex, anything really creepy that you can remember? Like there's been 2 situations in my life that I try not to think about because I feel like I can draw that thing right in. So now I'm asking you to do that and draw something terribly creepy back to you.
Boy, for me, I don't, no, nothing like super creepy like that. When I was a kid, my I have a younger sister. She's 11 years younger than me. So I would have been 16. I think she was, that would have made her 5, right? How's my math? My math's terrible. Yeah, she was around 5 years old. And my grandmother had recently passed away at that time, and she lived in Greece. Now, my sister met my grandmother one time when she was 3 years old. And my sister went running into my mother's room. My mother was sleeping, and she was trying to wake my mother up and tell her that Yaya is here. Yaya is grandmother in Greek. And so she kept saying to her, Mom, Yaya is here. Yaya is here. And my mom, of course, is, half asleep, telling her, oh, leave me alone. Let me go back to sleep, go play, whatever. And so my sister said, you don't believe me, I'll show you. She ran into our kitchen, grabbed the camera, and started taking pictures of my mother sleeping in bed because she said Yaya was there. So a couple weeks passed by. My mother gets the film developed, and there is a bunch of pictures of her laying in bed and a huge orb of bright light above her in bed.
Wow.
And he went to my sister and said, what is this? And my sister goes, oh, that's Yaya.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was something that happened when I was a teenager, and I was like, that's crazy, that's weird. And when we ask my sister about it to this day, she has no memory of this at all. She doesn't remember it. She's looked at the pictures and she doesn't get it. She's like, I don't remember that at all.
Well, that's a great story too, because most people in the paranormal are like completely anti-orb, and I am not. I think you can tell a dust orb when you zoom in because it's usually very perfect. It's very perfect, and even if you can really get into it, it's very symmetrical. And when you see something that has, not always, but when you see something that has a little abnormality to it, that can be something. I had a video of a team we were working in, actually in the coach house, and a medium in the group says, who is there by the door? And on this night vision video, like a little orb kind of comes up, like it looked like it was coming out of something. It must have been like another dimension. It sort of materializes, moves around a little bit, goes. It looks like if you were to say it went under something and came back up, and it keeps doing this. And then and then someone said, can you speak into the recorder at this little light? And you see it reemerge over by the light. So it's a video of it. So I think that's interesting because the fact that she's like, no, I'm taking a picture right now of grandma and she's an orb. That's another pro orb story, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a small orb. It was a big ball of light. It was big. It was profound. It wasn't like something you could go, oh, that's just a reflection of light or something. You could tell there was something there.
Wow.
So yeah, it was crazy. We've looked for the pictures too, and we cannot find them. My mother's got them stashed somewhere. But yeah, it's crazy.
That's one, that's interesting. You'll find that at the right time. I have old evidence and pictures all over the place. In fact, I'm so thankful for the ones I put up on Facebook because then I know they're somewhere. I don't know if 10 years I'll be like, oh, crap, I put them on Facebook. But I remember James Van Praagh in one of his books, he talks about ghost photos. And one of the things that they say, and this happens with EVPs, is they may disappear. You may be standing there, get an EVP, and listen back to it, and then go to someone else, hey, listen, and it comes off. And he said the same thing with pictures, that things can reappear and disappear on pictures, as well as the picture disappearing on its own. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I like James Van Praagh a lot. Everybody doesn't like him, but I find his information really helpful. And I thought he's right about that. I have gotten EVPs, or I put up a videotape on YouTube that a lot of people probably know. I was investigating the Washaw Club, and somebody commented on the tape, and at 29 seconds it said, "Did someone say kill her?"
Yeah, I remember that when you were talking about that in that episode.
Yeah. Well, that could not have been on there when I was editing it. So I think it reappeared later.
Interesting.
Nuts.
It
Wow.
makes me want to like re-listen to things when we've done ghost investigations, and try to see like, let's go back over those tapes and those pictures and see if there's anything.
I know, which, by the way, going over audio for EVPs is the most horrific job in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's hours. So,
Yes, yeah.
So Monique, anything that's scary that you can remember?
Well, okay, we talked about it on the show before, but when I was a kid and I was using the Ouija board, I wasn't smart about using Ouija boards, and I wouldn't close things. The portals that I opened, I didn't realize to close it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day my friend and I were using the Ouija board, and I was like, let's kick this up a notch. And I brought down a doll that my grandmother, gave me. I don't know if you've heard the stories. There's a town in Yugoslavia where everyone says the Virgin Mary appears. And this was back in, I want to say, like late 80s, early 90s. And so everyone would go to the town and they'd ask her to bless items, and they'd sell the items. So they got this little doll, like a plastic doll with a fabric dress. And my meme came back and she gave me the doll that was blessed by the Virgin Mary, allegedly. And I was like, okay, I get the doll out of my closet and I go downstairs and we start using the Ouija board. And across from us is sliding mirror doors. And I happened to look over in the mirror and saw the doll, her face change color. And it looked like, you know, when you get really hot and your face turns like that pinkish red color?
Mm-hmm.
It was like that. And it looked like smoke or steam was coming from her head. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, why is my doll like doing this? And I looked at her and it looked totally normal. But in the mirror, it looked different. So I was like, okay, so I had my friend go over to the mirror. I said, get closer to the mirror. Do you see what I see? She goes, yeah. And she's looking at the doll, looking at the mirror, going back and forth. And we'd like take turns swapping, and we could see the doll. When you looked at it, looked fine. But in the mirror, her face was red and there was something like smoke or steam looking coming from her head. I got so freaked out by it. I grabbed the doll. I ran upstairs, threw her in my closet, like buried her under stuff, and didn't take her out for like, I think by the time I moved out of my parents' house was when I finally dug her out.
Wow. You know, that story has a little bit of everything. You got your mirrors, you got your Ouija board, you got your doll, all kinds of, you got a creepy car driving by, very loud. I don't know if people can hear that on podcasts, but the traffic outside of my place is terrible. That's fascinating. Plus the fact that I learned how to say grandma in 2 languages, which is mama and yay. That's pretty interesting. It's interesting, the smoke coming out of the doll, because that to me sounds like when, you know how the really real ghost pictures, when it's sort of a white mist? Was it kind of like that?
Yes. When I lived in Providence, Rhode Island, I lived in a haunted house and I saw him moving, but it was like that white mist, but it was like, it's almost like a ghost.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. There was a ghost I saw moving from like one corner to the other. And it was like this whitish, clearish, silvery, like ball of cloudy mist. It's so hard to actually explain. But yeah, it's like that. And it's just, most people who aren't into paranormal, I feel like it's even harder to explain. But I feel like, it was just so creepy. And I don't know if that was like energy from the doll being released out or what, but
I have a picture on my Facebook somewhere, and it's of when I was at the Joke Joint in Minneapolis, and he had told me the place was haunted and he had some people in, but I was literally out front, and I got I think I was trying to take a picture of snow, and so I had 3 pictures in a row, 1, 2, 3, which is when you're doing ghost stuff you always want to do that when you're taking ghost photos in a haunted place, because you want to have nothing was there, now it's there, now it's gone, kind of thing. And it was such the perfect mist. And it's almost funny that even Hollywood can't reproduce what that looks like in a movie.
It's so weird when you see it. And it's so hard to explain. And that's why, like, if you can capture it, it's like, but even sometimes I feel like when I've seen it in pictures, it's not quite what it's like when you see it with your own eyes.
Right. I don't know that I've ever seen it like that. Like, I haven't been that. I have bad eyes and ears. I think I've had more clear audio stuff than visual stuff. But yeah, that's really, I have felt it though. I have felt it and it's really, yeah, I also think that's kind of the ultimate ghost photo. Like, sometimes people will show me, one woman showed me a arm like coming out of a closet, and it was such a perfect arm that I was like, yeah, that's not, I don't know if somebody gave you an app and put that on there or there's a double exposure, but it's the thing about ghost photos is they're rarely perfect.
Yeah.
Everything's a little distorted or something. So, wow. So, you know, I had a doll that once disappeared and reappeared, and I have that doll now. And it was, talk about the witch thing. Like, I guess you get what you send out. Like, I read for a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of them have witchcraft in past lives, which is why it sort of comes easy this life. Because I started to study witchcraft when I was very young, too. And I'll never forget, I showed my mom this book about it, and it had all the rituals in it. And she said, they're just as ritualistic as Catholics. Yeah. I thought, well, she's right. But I still have the doll with me, and it's literally a witch doll called Emerald, and it has green eyes that light up when you have batteries in them. Oh my God, we're at the break. Okay. I got carried away. Hold on, folks. We got more scary dolls and more fun and spooky talk with the Homewrecker Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's me doing an ad for me. That's right. I keep forgetting to say this at the end, so I had to take out an ad on my own podcast. First of all, thanks for listening, and I love all your feedback. If you have a comment or a story or just want to say hi, email me at karenrontowski@gmail.com. Also, go to karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com, and you can get my tarot class. That's right. It took me 2 years to put it together. It's 8 classes, about an hour each. You will be reading tarot by the end. While you're there, sign up for my email list. Everyone should do this. I only send out an email about every 2 to 3 months, and it's filled with typos and misspellings, so you know I haven't been kidnapped, and that's the best way to keep up on comedy dates and whatever is new. While you're there, you can book a 30 or 60-minute tarot reading, or you can get a gift certificate for somebody else. I got a little bit of merch left. If you want a Paranormal Karen Shungite sticker for your phone to make it safer, you can email me about that, or I now sell Paranormal Karen reusable straws. You take them with you wherever you go. Maybe you're doing cocaine with someone that doesn't look like they're clean. Boom, you got your own straw. karenrontowski.com. Okay, we're back. So tell me a story about when you moved into that haunted house.
Oh, so, okay, so I'm an empath. And as I think a lot of your listeners know, empaths tend to be attracted to people with lower vibrations, energy vampires, things of that nature. And I was with one of them at the time, so I was not in a good place. It got worse when I was living there. But he was asked to play in a band, so we moved to Rhode Island. And in the apartment, the roommate who was also in the band was saying that the house is haunted. I think he was from like the time of the Civil War.
Oh.
I never saw him.
I hope the ghost, not the band member. Otherwise, he'd be very old.
The ghost, sorry.
Okay.
The ghost was from like the Civil War era, but I never saw him full body apparition. But I saw one night I was alone, and I just remember I was watching, I think it was like 16 Candles, because I was watching a lot of John Hughes movies. And I look up and I see this cloud, and it's like how we explained that weird kind of mist sort of. Mm-hmm. And it moved from like one corner of the room, just kind of like slowly, but not like super slow, just across to like where the TV was. And I got so excited. I was like, hi, do you want to watch a movie with me? I was alone a lot in that apartment, and I just didn't feel alone. So even though like I wasn't with people, there were a lot of times where I felt like this ghost was my friend, and, you know, he would be there with me and keep me company. And then one evening, I remember I was in bed, and we would sleep with the bedroom door closed because the roommate had a black cat. And I had an iguana, and I didn't want her getting into to attack the iguana.
Which would be an interesting fight. Who do you think would win?
Knowing the iguana, she probably would have.
Right? Alex, who would you put money on?
I'd probably say the iguana too.
She was feisty. But we had, the red heat lamps for reptiles? We had one of those. So there's some light in the room. I wake up. I feel the cat jump on my chest. I feel the paws pressing against my skin into my chest. And I can just feel the cat. And so I'm like, Ziggy, get off of me. I'm half asleep. I'm like, Ziggy's the cat. So I'm like, Ziggy, get off of me. Not the boyfriend. And I'm like trying to like get the cat off. And so the cat, my boyfriend at the time wakes up and he's like, what's going on? The cat jumps off and runs under the bed. And I'm like, Ziggy just jumped on me. He's like, wait a minute. And he wakes up more. He's like, but the door's closed. How could the cat get in? And I'm like, wait a minute. I get up. I turn on the lights. I'm like, you saw the cat, right? He's like, yeah, I saw something on you. And I look under the bed. There's nothing. I open the door. The cat's outside. There's no way the cat could have got inside our room with the door closed. And later on, my roommate was saying that the ghost has done that before. It's shape-shifted into different things when it wants to get closer to someone without freaking them out.
Well, then I don't know. Can a ghost shapeshift? I thought they could.
I don't know. But when you're half asleep, I think sometimes it might be able to manipulate energy in terms of making you think possibly or like somewhat appear. But I felt it. I felt the cat on me. So,
well, I think that could be two things. First of all, that could literally be the cat outside of her body. I've said this before. I've seen Courage floating. I've seen him when, like, he's been asleep in one room, and I see him floating, like, to see if I'm getting food in the kitchen, like he wants to eat something. But I think there's a lot more elemental and fairy spirits. Everybody knows I'm fairy nuts. I'm not exactly pro fairy, but I think that I was talking once to somebody that was saying they thought fairies came from jinn, which is the original shapeshifter.
I remember that.
Yes, there's a great tape on I don't know, it's on one of the paranormal shows, and there's so many now, I don't know where it would be, but they had real evidence, and it was a little something, didn't look like a cat, was jumping on the bed and waking. You could see it, and you could actually see an outline of it. You couldn't see it totally clear, but you could see the bed like where the thing was jumping on it. So that was Rhode Island, right? Was it suburban?
Yes, Providence. Okay. It was in Providence, yeah. Yeah,
that seems, I wonder if there was a lot going on in the house. Because, you know, it's not usually just one thing.
Yeah. And now that you say that, I know in a previous episode you talked about jinn and shape-shifting, and it's not quite right. There's always something off. But I was half asleep, and the light wasn't great, so it was difficult to tell. I'm thinking back like, it could be an elemental of some sort. I'm absolutely open to that.
You know, there's something, I live in an apartment complex in Los Angeles, and it's very haunted. It has a lot of, just a lot of stuff. And of course, I read tarot in my apartment, so I kind of have to keep it locked down. And in fact, it's almost always the apartment next to me, and they always are calling me, and I'm always thinking, I hope I'm not pushing everything over there. But something happened over there. One time me and the other lady that lived there, we would hear this clicking. I would say, there's always somebody clicking like a pen. And she was like, she had the same thing, and we think this was some sort of office. I had a medium look into it, and she said, it's like people are doing architecture, and they're clicking a pen. They're all looking at schematics or something like that, which would make sense. But I have something, and it seems to run through. Okay, when I first got here, I felt something rub up against me that felt like a cat, and it got that sizzle, that cracking like electrical thing. You know that when something, And then something seems to run through this apartment, and it runs right past where I do tarot. And I've had someone sit there and have it bump the person that was sitting there. So they were like, oh, your dog just ran up. And it's almost like it feels like a cat, but in my mind, I see it like a cartoon, like it runs across and then it goes to turn around, like, you know how in the cartoons, the feet go and they can't get any traction. But it's very weird. It's almost like clients must come. Every podcast, I forget to turn my sound off and I get a text. Every single one. But
it's okay. I have to say stuff to him too when we record.
Yes. All right. So back to you guys. I'm talking way too much.
You don't mind.
So, Alex, when you go ghost hunting, say investigating, where are the favorite places you go? And do you tune in, or do you just sort of listen and wait to see what's going on?
We like to go to places that are reported to be haunted, where people have had experiences, like a lot of inns, a lot of hotels and stuff like that. And I just go with whatever instrumentation we bring. We got just a couple of little gadgets and stuff like that. And I rarely feel anything as far as, like, I don't get the chills or feel cold or get a bad foreboding feeling, nothing like that. I rely mostly on Monique's intuitiveness and what she's feeling and saying. But yeah, like I've never had felt really anything. We went to one place actually just recently where the only thing I felt was a feeling of almost acceptance, and which was weird. And Monique thought that it was the innkeeper who had passed away there. It had been within the last few years, right? It was pretty recent. And she thought that that's who was there, but it was almost just a feeling of just being welcomed and accepted. And we were we were trying to be very conscious of being, I guess, respectful of the place and just, not throwing trash on the ground, that kind of stuff. When we came in, we verbalized that, well, we were really excited to be here and we look forward to interacting with you. We made sure to verbalize that kind of stuff. And I almost think that maybe that was the spirit or the entity or whatever, just kind of saying, okay, you guys are cool, but
you guys aren't dicks.
Yeah, you guys aren't jerks. You're not the usual people that come and trash the place and wait for housekeeping, But yeah, I'd say that's really, that's it for me. I mean, I pretty much rely on her intuitiveness, I guess.
Well, that too, that's always a great reminder to just sort of be respectful of what's there, because I think we forget that. There was a TV show, and I'm not going to name which one, but it was when things kind of first started, and they actually ended up with a lot of lawsuits because they were going into private homes and, setting up all that TV equipment. You got gaffer's tape, they're wrecking the paint on the wall. They're literally wrecking the home. Well, there's a good topic for the Homewrecker podcast. They're literally wrecking the home as they were taping, which makes it really, now everybody's aggravated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite topics that you guys dig into on the podcast? Because you go through a lot. I was just listening to the one that you just did about Ed and Warren, who are fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a request, too, from a listener.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like a lot of the paranormal stuff. To me, that's the stuff that really interests me. And I like going down the conspiracy rabbit holes, too, but I feel like if you go too far down into those rabbit holes, it's just too dark. It gets the stuff gets just too dark, and it's really disturbing. So,
and there's no end. There's no end.
Exactly. Yeah. So, for me, I like the more the paranormal type stuff. Ghosts, entities, and that kind of thing, and just different experiences people have had. I also like the ghosts and the aliens and the UFOs. I like those kind of things as well, but I'm a lot more skeptical of those things.
Really? Now I find that interesting. And of course, the government just came out and said UFOs are real.
which is why I'm skeptical.
You know, you're exactly right. I had a friend that put the most brilliant post on Facebook, and he said, so you didn't believe anything the government told you till now, but now they're telling you the truth.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Which is also interesting that it came out at COVID time.
Well, that was my point.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, and it's more of a visual thing, but she was saying when somebody's pointing somewhere, there's always, 3 fingers pointing back the other way, basically saying like they want you to look somewhere because they don't want you looking back at them. What's going on?
Right. And you know what? It fell flat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it did. It really did. You almost didn't. I mean,
I think that's what they expected, though. That's what, personally, I think that's why they put it out when they did. There was so much stuff going on. So the people who might get upset or bothered by it were too worried. And then you have other people on the other end saying like, okay, yeah, we knew it. So.
Right. And then they'll reflect back on this. Oh, no, we've announced it years ago. We did it. We back here was what we said. I wonder. I haven't even kind of dove into that yet with the government stuff. But you know what else is very interesting? And I don't know if this is what I'm sending out. And you guys might be getting this too. But I am getting, and I usually get really nice emails or a give and take with somebody that's sort of on my level. I'm getting some real cryptic emails. And some of them, I keep thinking these are crazy people but then I'm like, you know what? I don't know that they are, because since this COVID thing started and what I'm expecting in November has brought a whole I've had some tarot clients that, I believe are part of these groups. I don't know. Now I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get too conspiracy theory, but are really kind of on the other side of things, and on the other side where there's a lot of things I didn't believe at one time. And I started kind of going, well, I don't know. Like I used to think, well, everyone in the government isn't bad. There must be a couple. And now I'm sort of like, get rid of all of them. And I don't know. It's just maybe I don't even have a question or a thing here, but all of a sudden I'm getting some very interesting emails and clients, almost like it's either the universe or somebody that's kind of going, let's push her a little bit that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, I don't know if it's something that's a manufactured thing or if it's, I've heard some people call it a great awakening. I don't know what it is, but I feel like now, especially with these last few months, people being forced to stay inside their homes, I feel like there's more people that are questioning everything, and people that maybe weren't so, I guess, eager to make their viewpoints known. A lot more people are now coming out and being more vocal. Like I found a lot more people are questioning, the government, questioning different legislation, different tactics that are being employed. A lot of people are calling into question things they see on the media. I don't know. I don't know if it's a great awakening or if it's some kind of crazy social engineering or something that's going on. But I mean, just myself, a lot of friends, family members that typically weren't into that kind of stuff are now coming to me and saying, hey, you were right about this. And I looked into this. And what do you think about this? And people that never would have talked or I thought would think like that before. I feel like people are starting to finally kind of wake up and realize something isn't right with what's going on now.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And it's why I'm keeping the strange emails, not because I think that I'm in danger, they're stalkers or anything, but I don't know, somebody gave me a list of coordinates for portals.
Oh.
Really?
Right? And there wasn't even a note with it. Or there was kind of a note, but it was just like, all right, I'm going to hang on to this. Now, a long time ago, I did have somebody that followed me through YouTube that started sending so much weird stuff that I was like, whoa. And it was very misspelled and it was very, so there is that out there. But it was almost like I'm having a conversation and someone sends me this. I have a client that is very much on the other side. I have a friend that we started talking, and I was like, whoa, okay. He had evidence of some stuff I wasn't exactly always on board with. But you know what else is the other thing? It's all about misdirection, because I see these things pop up. Like you said, the Great Awakening. So I saw that come up on Twitter. So I was like, what was that? And I hit it, and there was half, Trump people taking that as a Trump awakening. And I was like, okay. And then there was another one. There's Proud Boys now. And I just looked at that a little, and it seemed like, I don't know what that is. I only got to look a second, but it's almost like grabbing all this stuff. You got QAnon, you got Anonymous. For some reason, I like Anonymous because I've seen some documentaries they've done that I felt like I guess, but you don't know what group is infiltrated or crazy or is supposed to look like that. But it's getting scary out now that a hashtag can have more power than anything.
Yeah. I think, too, in that respect, when we talk about the Great Awakening, I don't see it as being a side. I feel like you have to step out of, stop picking a side. Get out of it. Remove yourself from everything so you can see the bigger picture. Because everyone's going to manipulate everything because they want to it's all about numbers. They want to get people on their side. And that's why you really have to remove yourself from, all sides and kind of take a step back. Like we always tell people, do your own research, come to your own decisions, think for yourself. Don't just believe what we say, because we want people to actually think. And I think in regards of people sending you messages, I'm sure you know this, but you have such a kind soul and this wonderful energy. And I think people feel really comfortable going to you and talking to you.
Well,
no, it's true.
I try not to disrespect anything that someone is sending me. And I do feel like, and thank you very much for that, I do feel like and I think that's great, exactly what you just said. I tell my listeners, only believe me and no one else. That's what I tell them all. No.
For you, it's okay.
So I think that it's almost like, I don't know. I so agree with that. And I agree with look at both sides. So it's interesting once it gets put into a hashtag that it becomes a side. And you know what? We're going to take a break and come right back and start with the topic of research, because I love where this. Psychic medium and buddy of mine, Terry Huberman, is with me today. Terry, you've given me so many great readings and healings, and now you've got everything together in one package. Tell me about that.
I sure do. So this package has energy healings, readings, and coaching.
Coaching, that's the best. And people, they buy the package. You give them coaching once a week?
Yeah, so we meet online once a week, and in between there's support as well.
And who would this be for?
This is really for folks who are in indecision, needing to get into their intuition because they're blocked or stuck. They need to move forward. And so we explore what the root causes of the problems are.
And helps them get out of their own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. And what can they expect from this?
Sure. So moving from anxiousness to confidence, accessing their freedom, joy, and security, and really being in alignment with themselves so they have that clear direction, so they know, aha, this is what I need to do next to reach my goals.
So now there's something that's free so people can talk to you and see if this is for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website, terryhuberman.com, there is a page where you can click, and it's the intuitive coaching package. And there is a button there that says schedule a free call. So you go ahead, schedule it. We'll get on a call and you can learn more about this program, and we'll see if this is a good fit for you or not.
See if there's chemistry.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's an odd date.
TerryHuberman.com, TerryHuberman. I highly recommend it, folks. Okay, so let's move right into the doom and gloom of November, as I do every podcast. Because, and it's funny, too. I really hope. Last night I was watching the violence in Minnesota, and I thought, and everywhere now, which is even, I just thought, you know what? I hope in November I'm just completely wrong and I have to take down all my podcasts. That would be great. But I feel like, first of all, the helicopters are going over me in Los Angeles, back and forth. and I couldn't find what was going on in LA even on the internet. And then when I go on Facebook, there's one person in Denver showing stuff on fire. There's another person showing in Louisville, and this is not on the news at all. I think the news is, and I do believe this, has been bought by everybody's been bought by Sinclair, or something is wrong here.
It's all the same small group who oversee the major media. Yeah. So it's really hard because a lot of people are getting shut down when they have alternative news sources. Yeah. So it makes it hard to find out the truth.
I saw this morning that I believe it was in Dallas. There's riots going on in Dallas, and there's some video of people that were standing in front of pallets of bricks that were just dropped off in front of courthouses right before the riots started. So there's almost like a manufactured element to a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. It's pretty crazy. It is. And it leads me to wonder, because also my podcast is not big enough to get pulled. And I don't think. And I know some of my friends have been pulled off of YouTube or certain episodes and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like, what does that mean? I want to I think I'm going to get on this DuckDuckGo, which is a private server where people.
That's what we use.
You use that? Okay. Yeah. I think it's time to go there. I just think it's time to get ready now slowly for everything. Case.
One of the things I ask with censorship is, what are they afraid of?
Right.
It makes me think, are they scared of something that's being said? Is it because it's the truth? Or, do they find it so damaging? I don't know. But I think if they're taking it down, I feel like it's because they're scared of something.
Right. Because the thing is, too, is who are they? And I don't know. I guess it's YouTube. I guess it's Google. But, all that. And everybody knows I'm 5G nuts. And everybody's seeing that stuff being taken down. And I don't know if that's because Verizon has so much money or if it's all the way into the Bill Gates mining data thing. But it is getting scary because... Well, it's not scary, but I wonder, let's say November is like what's going on now to the 10th power. Where do we go for news? What do we do?
That's the thing.
It's very... that at you guys like, what are we going to do? Tell me.
Yeah, well, it's like sometimes you have to go with your gut. What do you feel is right? A lot of times you see things and you're like, no. It doesn't feel like that's the truth, and not because you're in disbelief. You just, again, that gut feeling. And sometimes maybe that's what you have to do, but it's scary that people look to journalists to know what's going on, and we don't know if we can trust them.
Well, you can't trust them.
There are some, I think, alternatives that you can trust, but it's hard to find.
I guess. I feel like you can't trust anything you see on the news, and unfortunately for most of us now, we've all been raised to watch the news. That's where you get your information. They're trustworthy sources. You're raised to trust your religious leaders. If you go to church, you're supposed to trust your teachers. You trust your politicians. And the older you get, you realize these people don't have my best interests in heart at all. They're all in it for themselves. All these institutions are corrupt. And it's just too bad that some of us wake up and realize that, but there's so many people that still rely on that. And to get them to kind of wake up and question what they're being told, what they're seeing, it's almost impossible with some people to kind of get them to wake up and just think rationally and critically for themselves.
And Alex brought up a good point, too, where all these people want them, like, trust us. Yeah. But who's saying trust yourself?
Exactly. And, and I'm going to throw this out to listeners. If you think there's a news source that you are finding is kind of going the right way, let me know. I keep trying, whenever I go to put together a podcast myself, I can't get it out. And I'm always like, oh, next week you'll hear me do this podcast. But I'm doing one about Robert Kennedy because he's been pushed off all media. And one of the things that scared me is this tracking. Like if you listen to Art Bell, you guys are probably too young, but 100 years ago, Art Bell was the guy. He was talking about being tracked and Big Brother. And what is going on now with this COVID? They're going to have that where you can track people on their phone. And I Googled that because I was like, oh my God, don't people get it now? It's not even about chips in your arm or in the vaccination or whatever. And as I put it on YouTube, like the first 8 things that came up were the best app to track your employees, the best app for this, how to track your kids. And I was like, oh my God, we're there.
Yeah.
This is not going to be brought in like a issue, because I heard Ali Velshi on MSNBC. He said to the guy, this sounds like a little bit of a nightmare, but are they having an app that can track everybody? And that was the last bit of skepticism towards that topic that I have heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
We were talking about getting the old school flip phones that only do calls and texts for whenever we leave the house. Because I was like, I don't want a smartphone. I don't want 5G. I don't want it to be able to pick that up. And when I was listening to your show and you were talking about the dangers of 5G, I got so excited. I was like, there's somebody else.
Yes.
And talking about shungite. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's somebody else. So it was really exciting because most people look at me like I have 3 heads.
Oh, and I sleep with, you sent me the
Organite.
Organite. I sleep with that next to my head.
Excellent. Yes, I put shungite in all of my Organite.
And tell me about that. Do you sell that? Is that on your Etsy shop? Tell us all about that. Because when I first started talking about it, you sent me this, and it's just the perfect. I love it. It's beautiful. And my head is right next to my bed table, and it is right there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Alex was the one who actually discovered Organite in our household. If you want to explain that quickly.
Oh, I can't remember where I initially discovered. I want to say I listened to it on a podcast. It was a podcast about Wilhelm Reich and Orgone energy.
Oh my God. I so want to do a podcast on him. I have all these I want to talk about. It's fascinating. Made the machine, folks. Made the machine. Yeah. Somehow with a lot of things that people would sit in it for 15 minutes and their cancer started to go away. Right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so there was another gentleman who, I can't remember his name right now, but he essentially started to take Reich's research and he started to build Orgone devices. And that's like the stuff that Monique is building now. And this guy builds cloud busters, he calls them. Mm-hmm. And essentially he'll put one in his yard and the chemtrails above his home will start to dissipate and go away. It's pretty crazy, some of the stuff. Yeah. So I brought it to Monique's attention and she's like, I could make that. I could do that.
I'm so like, I don't know if it's the Sagittarius in me, but I'm just like, oh, I want it. I can do that. And it's not because I don't want to spend money on it, but like, I'm so of the school of like, I make things with love and I want to see if I can do it. And I feel like when you make something yourself, you're putting that energy and that love into it. And it just makes it that much more special for you. And so I just started making my own Organite. And recently I was like, I just love making it. So I was like, I should probably sell some on Etsy because it's all over our house and yard.
Yes,
so
you
I don't have any more room.
Oh, that's so great. My dream is to get a little trailer. One of the kind of LA has these little plots and mountaintops and I would love that. I want to grow my own stuff, but exactly what you're talking about, having that in my yard. I want to be able to paint a bedroom that with the paint that blocks EMF. So at least at night, and I actually tried to get a sponsor. I'm still trying to get one that wants to just do a trade-off to be on the show for an EMF blocking blanket. Like, I'm like, I want to do a trade and I want to know about this because it's pretty expensive right now, but I would love to really see the difference. I mean, I know there would be a difference, but I want my own place. I want to have goats and chickens and, and I don't know
what I want.
Right?
That's what we want.
Everybody's getting this desire to move out.
Yeah, we were looking like Nevada and Utah in the next few years just to kind of get land, like have a few acres. And I wanted to just grow plants and trees. And
I'm so with you on that. And to have my
we
own
should start
space.
a commune. We'll get like a big plot of land.
We're all getting close to that. And with Jessa and her group, they sort of do migrate. Jessa's people are amazing and they kind of migrate all over. And they're all sort of coming together. And I think we're there. I kind of feel like I could be the last stand in LA. Like I want to be the one that watches it all go down. I have a little bit. I'm like, I don't have kids. I'm not married. I'll be the last. I need that. I need a husband like yours, that's all in and will put orgonite in my lawn and be okay with that.
Well, you can always come on our property. You're always more than welcome.
And so, Will, tell me, like, as we tell what is on your Etsy shop, because that's what I want to see there. Your orgonite.
Yeah. So
that sounds so dirty. Show me your orgonite.
Oh, I'll show it to you, honey. Woo. I just have I have like cones. I just started making elemental pyramids. So they represent the 4 different elements. Well, I'm sorry, 5, because I'm going to include ether. So I'm kind of making prototypes right now to see what's working. I have a table outside in the sunshine with some orgonite I made this morning. I have some custom pieces that were requested. So that's sitting out in the sun right now. And I have skull molds. I have cones, pyramids, roses, all different things.
Yeah, you made me the rose. I love it.
Yes. Thank you. And then I also have some incense. I'm working on different types with different herbs. So pretty soon there's going to be a relaxation incense. I have protection, strength, and just things like that, like different types of loose incense. And I have available right now a protection bag, which is a mix of herbs and resins and crystals and plant matter that I've put together in a little velvet satchel with a pentacle on it. And I use that for protection. So I figured I'll make some for other people, but those are custom. So I need information from people, and then I complete the protection pack for them.
Wow. I can't believe I haven't seen your Etsy shop yet. That's how good of a friend I am.
No, it's okay. I just started it too, like a month ago, and I'm just slowly adding things onto it.
Oh, good. Okay. Because I was like, I don't remember. I must have been behind. Also, your tarot readings. Tell everybody about that.
Yes, I read tarot. So you can go to my website and schedule a tarot reading. You can go to my Etsy shop, Wonders by Monique, and schedule it that way too. Or you can just send me a private message. I'm pretty flexible.
I love that. And you must get even more than on the tarot. You get feelings about people, and you must get, like, I always say, tarot reads, I always call them kind of on the cards and off the cards. It's a half and half. So you ever pick up about, like, well, it must be different each time. I don't want to pin that down. I was going to say, so you must get a lot of just off of your vibes too, right?
Well, yeah. So part of me is, what is the card saying? Because sometimes I can get the same card for different people, but they mean different things. Sometimes the pictures, there's certain things that are just really sticking out in the image on the card.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like I hear my spirit guide saying stuff to me like, no, this is what it means. Because I'm just like, this isn't really making sense just looking at the cards. And then I'm being told, well, no, it's this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know about you, but I find it so funny. I'll do a card reading for somebody and I'll tell them, and they're looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never had that. And then a few minutes in, we're talking, and then they bring up everything I just said. And I'm like, but that's what I just said.
Always.
And they're like, oh, well, it's like, but you said that didn't happen, and here you're telling me it did.
That is I use this example, I think, in my tarot class. I can't remember if I did, but there is a thing called psychic amnesia that someone told me about that I think happens, but also it's, so this lady, I'd lay out for her and I say, well, who's moving? And she said, no one. And I said, oh, well, who's getting a divorce? And she said, no one. And I said, well, maybe I just can't read you. Is there anything you want to ask me? And she said, can you tell me about my daughter? She's getting a divorce and she's moving to North Carolina. And I was like, do you think that Oh, I see. But I think, and this makes me crazy, that people expect psychic information to be unbelievably like, yes, and it's sometimes you got to give a little, but some people don't give anything. Like she just couldn't, that wasn't coming in. And I can't think of a good example, but we did that once on a podcast with Karen and Kira where I told this guy all this stuff and he's like, oh, so it's not specific. And I was like, listen, I don't have the lady's ring size. I can't, and I'm not a person that does that well with names, but if people just listen, I think they can actually end up with really specific information.
Oh, yeah. I feel like we need to do a PSA for tarot readers for people who want a tarot reading. But, I had somebody who wanted financial information and like she wanted me to tell her like the specific types of things she should invest in. And I'm just like, no, honey, I don't get that. But actually what I was being told is you need to invest in yourself. And I brought up all this stuff and she's like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then we're talking and she's like, oh, well, actually, now that, I wanted to do this and this and this. And I was like, so you did want to start your own business and you did want to do this. So it's like, that's okay. We got there and that's what's important. But I do notice sometimes a lot of people will feel like, oh, it doesn't really make sense. And then later on, they're like, oh my gosh, this happened. And everything, fell into place. So sometimes people should realize that it's not instant gratification with a reading always.
Right.
It takes time for things to manifest.
Yeah. And also, it really, I think sometimes too, when they come looking for an answer that they know what they want to hear. I'm constantly talking about how people will come to you with a problem and say the options are A or B. And I'll go, no, I got C. And they're like, no, there's no C. Yes, there is a C. And so if they are directed that they want you to say something, they can't hear what you are saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I still got to make a funny video of reading for someone that's making every mistake. just possible. All right, so let's tell everybody where they can find you, what's happening. So Tarot by Monique, that's your site, correct?
Yes, it is.
And Wonders by Monique is your, I gave that like an accent, Monique. That's your Etsy shop. Fantastic. And Alex, tell everybody about what you do and your site.
So my site is alexarionfitness.com. You can go on there. I have a lot of different articles that I write about just general fitness stuff. And I also offer fitness and nutrition coaching. And I've got a couple of different fitness programs for sale on there too. With the quarantine and everything that happened, I wrote just a calisthenics workout that people can check out. You don't need any equipment. You just need your body weight and a little bit of space in your apartment, your house, wherever you're living to do it. So that's what I offer. And as far as the podcast goes, we've got a website, which is
homewreckerpodcast.com.
You can find us on Twitter
at Homewrecker Pod.
I love how you guys do it.
Instagram.
Thank you. Instagram is Homewrecker Podcast.
And that's it, right?
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Oh, we have YouTube and we're on Brighteon as well.
Okay, great. And I'll put all this in. If everybody goes to homewreckerpodcast.com, they can find it all, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Yes. You guys, thanks for coming on. This was so long overdue and such a great podcast.
Thanks so
you,
much
Karen.
for having us. We appreciate it.
All right, everybody, go listen to my friends' Homewrecker Podcast. And everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media, my producer. Folks, we'll see you all next week. Stay safe.